Closer is a track by the Chainsmokers, which consists of Andrew Taggart and Alex Paul. It also features the vocals of Halsey, aka Ashley Frankenberry. The Chainsmokers are most recently relevant for their tracks and
Let me take a selfie.
Halsey, being relatively new to the pop scene, is most notable for
We are the new Americana.
Closer was originally released on July 29th, 2016, and is featured on the Chainsmokers EP Collage, which was released on November 4th, 2016. Collage also contained their hit single
Don't let me down.
Closer first hit the charts at number 6 in the last week of August, and topped the charts starting in the first week of September, replacing
Baby, I don't need dollar bills to have fun tonight.
which is really unfortunate, as I don't exactly have a lot of money at my disposal, and really could have gone for some more cheap thrills, especially since the other call girls are so... Regardless, Closer is distributed by Disruptor in Columbia, with the production credit given to the Chainsmokers. Andrew Taggart, who does the male vocals on the track, and Miss Frankenberry are both credited with being writers, as well as Sean Frank, Frederick Kennett from Louis the Child, and members of The Fray, Isaac Slade, and Joe King. Taggart has said during the track's composition that Blink-182 had a strong influence over the song, especially their track
Don't waste your time on me.
or
Fell short this time.
depending on what day you ask Taggart, who apparently has difficulty differing between Blink-182 songs, which I guess is why they don't specify it in the actual song.
That Blink-182 song.
Additional influences include
I just wanna break you down so badly.
and
Everyone knows I'm in over my head.
it's good to note that
Over my head.
was so influential that, as said previously, Slade and King are credited as writers, given not until September 2nd, over a month after the song was released. Closer falls into the EDM genre of music, is just over 4 minutes long in A-flat major.
The A-flat major scale consists of the pitches A-flat, B-flat, C, E-flat, E-flat, F, and G. Its key signature has 4 flats,
4/4 time,
4 quarter note beats per measure.
and plays at 95 beats per minute. The song has a 4-measure intro and then goes verse,
The part with a lot of the words.
pre-chorus,
The part before the chorus.
chorus,
The catchy part, which sometimes doesn't have very many words.
verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge,
It bridges things.
chorus. If you don't know what that means, don't worry, you're just stupid. A normal person with substandard, uncultured, don't worry about it. The song opens with some softly playing piano chords that continues for about 4 measures. These chords will be present throughout various parts of the track, but we'll go over that later. After the intro, Taggart personally calls us to grab our attention, as the song has now started, and he really wants to make sure that we're paying attention to his verse. The first half of his verse is fairly sparse sound-wise, as it only has his vocals, a kick, snaps, and a synth. Once we get to the second half of the verse, some things are added. I can only imagine that Paul went up to Taggart and said, "Hey Drew, we've now written 4 bars of the same thing. In order to keep the music interesting, we should now change something to keep it fresh." "Wow, Alex, you're right. What do you think we should do? How about maybe a counter melody or something?" "Nah, fuck that. We gonna put in some claps with the snaps." Despite Taggart's feeling about counter melodies, I guess Paul did manage to fit in the main theme of the song, fading in the background, as well as a swelling sound to lead into the pre-chorus. I can only imagine this was done subtly to avoid upsetting Taggart with his snaps and claps. Regardless, this leads us to the pre-chorus, which gives us a full drum beat as well as Taggart layered over himself to make it sound like he's not just singing by himself.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car.
I guess he got lonely and they hadn't gotten to Halsey Frankenberry yet, so he just had to make do for the time being. We can also hear the theme in the background, which we'll go over in more detail in just a bit.
Now you're looking pretty in a hotel bar.
I'll give a special shout out to
I can't stop.
as it is the only part of the vocals that is sung in this melismatic
singing of a single syllable of text while moving between several notes in succession.
style. Since this is the pre-chorus, it is only natural for it to build until we get to...
So baby, pull me closer in the backseat of your Rover that I know you can't afford. Bite that tattoo on your shoulder.
Notice how the piano from the intro returns to accompany Taggart in his journey to the instrumental part of the chorus. Right before the instrumental, I can guess that while they were working on the transition, Taggart said to Paul, "Alex, we need something that the kids these days can relate to beyond what we've already put in. What's popular these days?" Well, there seems to have been an increase in world awareness as of late. Why don't we... That's it, Alex! Trap snares! We now get the main theme in all its glory. The theme plays with interjections from Taggart. This then repeats with Taggart's interjection having had an effect added to it the second time. I imagine he got louder as he saw Miss Frankenberry walk into the studio, so he felt in order to show his excitement, he'd add some effects to his vocals. Speaking of Miss Frankenberry, now that she's here, she gets to sing a verse. Formally speaking, Frankenberry's verse and pre-chorus are identical to Taggart's, so I won't bother going over everything again, minus one special exception. You'll notice that when she says it, there is an effect added as opposed to when Taggart sang it.
4 years, no calls.
I guess Miss Frankenberry is a bit more concerned with not being called for 4 years. This makes sense considering her fortune, the Frankenberry cereal, is only really relevant around Halloween and nobody ever really buys it unless it's for the holiday. I can imagine she might have some abandonment issues because of this. This takes us to another chorus, but this time Taggart and Frankenberry sing together.
Baby, pull me closer in the backseat of your Rover.
We now get to the bridge, which is really just more of the chorus. It starts with Taggart singing alone again,
Baby, pull me closer.
but it starts to repeat itself at...
We ain't ever getting older.
and Frankenberry joins in on every other repeat. They really want to emphasize that they are, in fact, not. The song ends with one final instrumental, and to make it that much more monumental, it combines and to create. And since Frankenberry was late to the recording, they let her play with more of her vocals. The song ends with a faded distortion of the theme and then just leaves you hanging. There are really only two chord progressions in the song. There's the and the
Hey, I was doing just fine before I met you. I drank too much.
We'll focus on the piano one first. The chords that you're hearing are as follows: D flat add 9, E flat, F minor 7, and E flat again. The piano sustains the chords and always plays them in the same rhythm, half note tied to an eighth note, followed by a dotted quarter note. Also, notice the highest note is the same note, E flat, throughout the entire progression. Since the progression lacks any A flat major chord, it has this feeling that it's never ending. There's never any sort of resolution and thus creates this sort of rocking feel, like when your grandmother quietly rocks on her chair and says comments that may not exactly be politically correct. This pattern is used to its fullest in the bridge, as it makes a great pattern for a build-up.
We ain't ever getting older. We ain't ever getting older. We ain't ever getting older. We ain't ever getting older.
The second progression is the one used in the synth. It's similar to the piano progression in many ways, but instead of using the E flat major chord, it uses an A flat major 7th chord with an E flat in the bass. For those that care, this makes the chord in its second inversion.
A rearrangement of the top to bottom notes in a chord.
It's also good to note that the way the notes are placed in the chord are voiced very differently than a standard chord. This works though, because unlike the piano chords, the synth chords are played very quickly and not held for long periods of time. The synth chords still do follow the same harmonic rhythm that the piano played before. Also good to note, at the end of each phrase, the bass line has a slight deviation from the pattern just to give it some extra flavor.
Hey,
This progression is great for pianists that have tiny fingers. So what makes this theme interesting is that it is extremely simple in terms of the notes it uses. It only uses 3 notes, A flat, B flat, and C. I guess Taggart and Frankenberry couldn't be asked to sing more than 3 notes in the chorus, so these were the notes they settled on. We are beaten over the head with this theme as it exists everywhere in the track. Here's the theme in its entirety. Now, since the theme is straight 8th notes, it would get pretty boring pretty fast. Luckily, they gave it a bit more character. What they do here is that they give the theme a rhythmic emphasis in which any given note is played for a different amount of time than the others. The best way of hearing this is to listen to the lyrics in the chorus before the instrumental.
So baby, pull me closer in the backseat of your Rover that I know you can't afford. Bite that tattoo on your shoulder.
When writing music for singers with lyrics, any word that has more than 1 syllable can have a note given to each syllable. When composers want to do this, they use a slur to show the whole word with its divided syllables. So if I took the main theme and added slurs that line up with the lyrics, it would sound much more enjoyable than just... This makes the theme much more interesting and is a way to make a simple melody have a bit more meat to it. I could spend more time talking about the concept of getting a lot out of a little, but that'll be taking up more of your time, and we're not getting any younger, unless we were immortal, in which case...
We ain't never getting older. We ain't never getting.
Ashley Frangipan, screw it, Frankenberry.